Germany had no idea what was coming. Eala just crashed Stuttgart and the WTA will never be the same again. Germany, brace yourselves. Because a 20-year-old from the Philippines just showed up uninvited to one of the most prestigious clay courts in all of Europe, and within hours of her name hitting the official draw sheet, an entire nation mobilized. Ticket sites lit up. Filipino group chats exploded. Travel plans got reshuffled. And somewhere in the offices of the Posh Tennis Grand Prix, a tournament that has been running for nearly half a century, someone looked at what was happening to their commercial metrics and had to take a very long, very quiet moment to process the fact that the most talked-about player arriving in Stuttgart this week was not a Grand Slam champion or former world number one. It was a player ranked 46th in the world who was not even supposed to be in the draw. Welcome, everybody, to the latest chapter of the Eala effect. And trust me when I tell you, Stuttgart did not know what it had signed up for. After suffering an early exit at the Linz Open, where she went down to Latvia's Eala Ostapenko in the second round, Eala shifted her focus rapidly toward Germany and her highly anticipated debut at the prestigious Porsche Tennis Grand Prix. Phil Star, no drama, no complaints, no lengthy social media post about bad luck or difficult draws. Just a plane ticket, a training bag, and that same relentless competitive focus that has been turning heads across the tennis world since the very beginning of the 2026 season. Because here is what you need to understand about Eala before we get into any of the numbers or the match details or the commercial chaos she leaves behind at every single tournament she enters. This young woman does not get rattled. She does not shrink when the moment gets big. And she absolutely does not need a wild card or special treatment to earn her spot in the world's most loaded draws. Eala received her place in the Stuttgart main draw as a direct replacement for China's Qin Wenjing, who was forced to withdraw due to injury, meaning she earned this opportunity through the WTA's alternate list rather than through any kind of organizational favor. Rappler, she was next in line. She was ready, and the moment that announcement dropped, the Eala army got to work. The 2026 Posh Tennis Grand Prix is the 48th edition of this storied WTA 500 event, played on indoor clay courts at the Porsche Arena in Stuttgart from April 13th through April 19th, with a total prize pool exceeding €1 million and the champion also driving away in a Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. Tennis 365, let that sink in for a second. This is not some low-key warm-up event tucked between Grand Slams. This is one of the most glamorous, most historically significant clay court tournaments on the entire WTA calendar. The field this year features Elena Rybakina as the top seed following Aryna Sabalenka's withdrawal, with Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, and Elina Svitolina rounding out the top four, all of whom received first-round byes. Pro Football Network, four absolute titans of the women's game. Multiple Grand Slam titles between them. Combined Instagram followings that would make social media managers weep with joy. And yet, from the moment the draw was confirmed, the conversation kept coming back to the same name. The player ranked 46th. The replacement entry. The Filipino sensation who has spent the entire 2026 season making a mockery of every assumption the tennis establishment makes about which players actually move the needle commercially. Now, to truly understand what is happening in Stuttgart right now, you need to understand the pattern that has been building all season. Because this is not a coincidence or one-time story. This is a documented, repeatable, accelerating phenomenon that has been leaving tournament directors across the world absolutely speechless. The Abu Dhabi Open broke its own attendance record for its opening weekend, and analysts were pointing directly at Eala's participation as the central reason why those records fell. Tennis head, one tournament, one player, record shattered. Then came Indian Wells, the California desert, one of the grandest settings in all of professional sports. Filipino supporters packed out every available seat around Eala's practice court, with fans standing wherever they could find space just to watch her train before a single competitive ball had even been struck. Pro Football Network, not a match, not a semifinal, not even a qualifying round. A practice session, the kind of low-key warm-up that normally attracts a couple dozen curious onlookers and the occasional journalist. Eala turned it into a standing-room-only event before she had done anything except hit ground strokes. At Indian Wells, The crowds gathering around Eala were being compared in scale to those of Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff, front office sports, which is a comparison so wild it deserves a moment to pause. Alcaraz is a multi-time Grand Slam champion and arguably the most exciting player in the men's game. Gauff is an American icon with a slam title, a massive endorsement portfolio, and a cultural profile that extends far beyond tennis. And there was Alex Eala, a 20-year-old who had not yet won a WTA title, drawing comparable crowds to both of them. Indian Wells tournament director Tommy Haas reacted to the spectacle of Filipino fans flooding the grounds by calling it fantastic, describing it as exactly the kind of global growth and new energy that the sport had been seeking. Tennis head, when a tournament director publicly celebrates what your fan base does to his event, that is not a player on the rise. That is a movement in full motion. ESPN has described the phenomenon as the tennis equivalent of a touring superstar's concert run, with Eala drawing fans from communities that had never previously engaged with the sport, turning every tournament she enters into a must-see destination event for the Filipino diaspora. ESPN, and the diaspora is enormous. There are over 10 million Filipinos living outside the Philippines, spread across every continent on this planet, holding onto their national identity with a pride and intensity that anyone who has ever been around a Filipino community can attest to. For decades, those communities watched Filipino athletes compete in relative obscurity on the global stage. And then Alex Eala showed up at the 2025 Miami Open as a wild card, knocked off Madison Keys and Iga Swiatek, made the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event, and changed everything. The diaspora did not just find a tennis player to support. It found a symbol, and symbols do not follow the WTA ranking system. The Eala effect has grown so powerful that it is now directly influencing scheduling decisions by the WTA itself, with her matches being moved to center court at multiple tournaments specifically to accommodate the overflow of Filipino supporters and provide better television production value. Fernandez has spoken warmly about her Filipino roots, which trace through her mother's side to regions in the Philippines, making her connection to Filipino culture genuinely personal rather than merely biographical. The Manila Times, two left-handed players, two young women with deep ties to the same nation, one representing the Philippines on the court, the other carrying Filipino roots while competing under the Canadian flag. When Philippine sports media sat down to write about this first-round draw, they did not frame it as a tennis match. They framed it as a cultural event, and they were right to do so. The winner of the Eala Fernandez match will face Italy's world number 8 Jasmine Paolini in the second round, Rappler, meaning the stakes for advancing are enormous. Paolini is a genuine clay court threat heading into the Roland Garros stretch. A win over her would send a signal across the entire European swing that Eala is not just a commercial phenomenon, but a legitimate competitive force on the surface that matters most over the next 6 weeks. Eala enters Stuttgart carrying a 2026 season record of 14 wins and 8 losses, a significantly stronger head-to-head balance than Fernandez, who stands at just 4 wins and 9 losses for the year with 5 opening round defeats already on her ledger. Tennis 365. The rankings say Fernandez is the highest-seeded player. The form says something rather different. And here's the thing about the commercial earthquake that Eala's Stuttgart appearance has triggered. The WTA operates on a foundational premise that higher-ranked players generate higher revenues. It is the logic that drives seedings, scheduling, prize money distribution, and how tournaments position their marquee attractions. A player ranked 46th replacing a top 40 player should, by every conventional calculation, represent a loss for the tournament. Softer ticket demand, less media interest, more empty seats. That is what the models predict. But because of the overwhelming and passionate support that follows Eala to every event she enters, she has effectively become one of the WTA's most sought-after wild-card participants, with tournaments recognizing that her presence guarantees attendance boosts that ranking alone cannot produce. Philstar, the institutional tennis world, is being forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that their ranking system measures individual achievement on the court, but has absolutely no mechanism for measuring market power in the stands. And when market power diverges from rankings, the money flows toward the movement. The WTA responded to the extraordinary surge in Filipino interest in tennis by announcing the creation of the Philippine Women's Open, the country's very first WTA tournament, held in January, with tickets for the final having already sold out before Eala had even confirmed her participation. ESPN, read that again. Sold out before she confirmed. The tickets were gone based purely on the possibility that she might show up.